Hello, my name is Axel, and I will be your narrator today as we present to you a fan fiction tribute to Agatha Christie's character Miss Marple, as we delve deep into our imaginations to explore fascinating situations as our favorite Christie character comes alive in the playhouse. Please join us, and while you are here, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Now, here is our story. The Case of the Bitter Seed. A brand new fan fiction Miss Marple mystery from the Plot Twist Playhouse. Part 1, The Salted Earth. The village of St. Mary Mead was, to the casual observer, a place of profound peace. But Jane Marple knew better. To her, the village was a microscope, and under it, one could see the entirety of human nature, which was, she often noted with a sigh, rarely as pleasant as a summer morning. It was the Tuesday before the annual flower show, an event that generated more local animosity than a general election. Miss Marple sat on a small folding stool near the edge of the public footpath that bordered the estate of Colonel Arbuthnot. She was not spying, though the distinction was fine, she was sketching. Her subject was a rare Lathyrus odoratus, a sweet pea of a particularly vibrant crimson. The colonel was not a man built for the delicacy of flowers. He was a man of iron and salt, with a neck that turned a dangerous shade of purple when his breakfast eggs were cold. As Miss Marple's pencil scratched against the paper, she heard the colonel's roar from inside his glass-walled sanctuary, the great greenhouse. "I'll see you in the poorhouse first, boy. Not a brick. Not a single suburban brick shall be laid on this soil while I draw breath." A younger man, thin and dressed in a suit that looked expensive but tired, stumbled out of the greenhouse. This was Arthur, the colonel's nephew. He wiped sweat from his forehead, his eyes darting toward the footpath. He saw Miss Marple, offer a curt, nervous nod, and vanish toward the village. Miss Marple adjusted her sun hat. "Dear me," she murmured to the sweet peas. "Such a very loud family." 30 minutes later, the colonel himself emerged. He didn't see Miss Marple. He walked to the edge of his rose beds, his pride and joy, the crimson sovereigns. He looked at them with a strange, possessive hunger. He reached out to prune a dead head, his movements jerky. Then, he returned to the greenhouse and locked the door from the inside. It was the last time anyone saw Colonel Arbuthnot alive. Part 2, The Quiet Morning. Wednesday morning brought a strange atmosphere to the village. It began when Mrs. Gable, the colonel's fiercest rival in the best rose category, arrived at the village post office with a look of frantic energy. "The tragedy," she cried to the room at large. "The sheer, horticultural tragedy." Miss Marple, who was purchasing a packet of peppermint creams, turned slightly. "Has something happened to the colonel's roses, Mrs. Gable?" "The man is dead, Jane. Found this morning by the maid. He tripped, they say. Fell right into a terrace of his own seedlings. Tragic." "But," she leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hiss, "the roses, someone has poured salt on them. Ruined. Generations of breeding, gone in a night." Miss Marple felt a small chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. "Dead? How very distressing. And the seedlings he fell into?" "The aconitum," Mrs. Gable said, her eyes wide. "Monkshood. Highly poisonous if the sap enters a scratch. And the colonel was always scratching his hands on those thorns." Later that afternoon, Miss Marple found herself standing near the police tape at the Arbuthnot estate. Inspector Slack, a man who viewed Miss Marple's presence with the same enthusiasm one might reserve for a migraine, was heading toward his car. "Now then, Miss Marple," Slack grumbled. "It's a closed case. Accidental death. The man was 80, his eyesight was failing, and he tripped in a cluttered greenhouse. It's a sad end, but a simple one." "Is it true about the roses, Inspector?" she asked gently. "The salt?" "Vandalism," Slack dismissed with a wave. "Probably a disgruntled villager. The colonel wasn't liked. But salt doesn't kill a man. The monkshood did that." "It is a curious thing," Miss Marple said, looking past him at the blackened, withered rose bushes. "To kill a man and his flowers on the same night. It seems excessive. Like wearing both braces and a belt." Part 3, Tea Interiors. That evening, Miss Marple invited Arthur Arbuthnot to the vicarage for tea. The young man looked haunted. His hands shook as he reached for a scone. "I didn't kill him," Arthur snapped. "I was at the Blue Boar pub until 11. There are a dozen witnesses. Ask them." "I believe you," Miss Marple said, and Arthur sighed with relief. "But," she continued, "I did find your cufflink in the rose garden. The garden that was salted. That is a very spiteful thing to do to a dying man's hobby, Arthur." Arthur turned pale. I went there. Late. I was angry. I wanted to hurt him where it pinched. I poured the salt. But he was already inside the greenhouse. The lights were out. I didn't see him. I didn't go in." "If you were there at 11, Miss Marple asked, did you notice the clock in the greenhouse?" "The clock?" Arthur frowned. "Yes. It was glowing. It said 11:30. Miss Marple leaned back. "Or," she whispered, "someone wanted us to think he kept them fast." Part 4, The Silent Witness. Miss Marple thought of the third suspect, Ellen, the maid. Ellen had been dismissed by the colonel just 2 days prior. Miss Marple made a visit to the small cottage where Ellen was staying. "I didn't do it, Miss Marple," Ellen sobbed. "I was at the cinema. I have my ticket stub. The film ended at 10:30 p.m. The bus ride back would have put her in the village at 11:15 p.m., the same time Arthur was salting the roses." "Did you see anyone, Ellen?" "Only Mrs. Gable," Ellen said. "She was coming out of her garden gate with a bucket. She said she was dealing with slugs." Part 5, The Gathering at the Greenhouse. That evening, Miss Marple requested a meeting inside the great greenhouse. "This is ridiculous," Inspector Slack barked. "I told you, it's an accident." "He did trip, Inspector," Miss Marple said. "But he tripped over a garden hose that had been deliberately strung across the doorway, and then removed after he fell. Alibis are like knitwork. Pull one loose thread, and the whole thing unravels. The thread here is the greenhouse clock. The colonel didn't keep clocks fast, he kept them accurate. Mrs. Gable, you entered this greenhouse earlier that evening. You moved the hands of that clock forward by 20 minutes. Then, you set the trap with the hose. In your mind," Miss Marple said softly, "the clock said 11:30. But the real world was only at 11:10. You thought the bus had already passed, but the bus was delayed. You ran right into Ellen. You tried to fix the clock later, but the colonel's body was already cold. The discrepancy remained." Mrs. Gable's face turned the color of ash. "He was going to win," she whispered. "He didn't even care about the flowers." Part 6, The Final Stitch. A week later, the annual flower show went on as planned. Arthur Arbuthnot approached Miss Marple. "I've decided to turn the estate into a public park. Nature has a way of reclaiming things, Arthur," Miss Marple said. As she walked home, she felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. The world was a dark place sometimes, but as long as one kept one's eyes open, the truth would always find its way to the light.